All right, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everyone is well. Karibuni sana. Good to see lots of people streaming in here and also guys joining us on our YouTube channel. Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. Hope you had a good weekend, but we're really glad that you could join us. Like I always say, I know you're busy people, but you do take the time to be here with us, and we definitely do not take that for granted. So for the sake of guys who are new to me and to us, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So it's a group of traders that do trade together and show people how to go about it on the chart. So we also do have Mitch. He is here working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will definitely be getting back to you. But also do feel free to ask your questions on the Q&A section. At least I will be looking at those questions towards the very tail end of this webinar. But remember, as always, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on, and you will definitely get a much favorable response. So also for the guys who are joining us for the first time, we do this each and every morning, Monday to Friday. So feel free to join us with the same link that you did use to join us. And of course, for the guys joining us on the socials, at least also still feel free to join us at the same time, but also, I mean, if you do end up missing out on anything that we do end up discussing here, then you can end up catching up on our YouTube channel. Also, remember to give us a subscribe and also a like. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list, what we had on Friday in comparison to today. You can see on Friday, we're basically watching out to see whether we could get sales on the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc, mixing and matching that up with everything on the buys. The watch list for today has a couple of changes, and you can see it right there. So feel free to take a screenshot of that. You can see that quite a number of currency pairs have switched sides, but the indices and the commodities do end up remaining more or less on the buy side. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have on Friday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with this one. This is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. For this one on Friday, we're watching out for buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So at around 9, 10, and I did point out that it wasn't a really good time to look for the buys unless the market did break this region to the upside, and also giving these sellers the benefit of doubt to push the market back down. There's also this region right here that I had pointed out that maybe could have found that the market could have come back in, within that region, and maybe you could find some buys, but there was no reaction there. But you can see that during the US session, the market came down and took off from this region right here. So from around 4:30, you can see that's when the buy started to work out. But you can see that this region right here still did pose some sort of a challenge. You need to manage your trade within there. But of course, the things that we do discuss, you will find that maybe during one session, the market could be on the pullback phase. Like for that one, during the London session, the market was on the pullback phase. Then during the US session, that's when the move actually did happen to the upside. So always make sure that you watch out for that. And you can see that it's also something similar to this one. This is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. We're watching out for buys. I did point out caution in terms of looking for the buys within here. There was a minor SNR here, but we couldn't get anything there. And you can see that the market did end up coming down back in within this region right here. This was during the London session. The market pulled back in. During the US session, more or less almost some sort of a similar situation, but you can really see that the buyers really struggled to push the market to the upside. And today, you can see that the yens have showed a lot of strength, and it's something that we'll end up seeing across the board, more or less on quite a number of yen pairs. We always talk about the correlation being quite perfect when it comes to the yen pairs. So it's something that's visible across the board on all the yen pairs. So for this one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. For this one, we're watching out for buys in the morning on Friday. At a time like this, price was somewhere within here. Wanted to see the market come back in within here and maybe try and see whether we could get a big boy buyer, coming in for us to push the market to the upside. But you can see that the market really struggled within this region, broke the downside, came back in within here. More or less a similar situation with the rest of the yen pair that we've seen. The market came down, bounced off this area to around 4:30, which is during the New York Stock Exchange open. And you can see that from there, the market did continue pushing to the upside. You definitely did need to manage your trade higher up within here. Even if you did close your trade, on Friday evening, somewhere within this area, still more or less good, but you can see that the market tapped within that region during the Asian session before the sellers did end up coming in quite aggressively. So fortunately, not really a currency pair we'll be watching out for today. But nonetheless, some buying opportunities here and there, especially on the yens. But like we always point out, you always need to make sure that you manage your trade. So moving on into some CHFs that we did have on Friday that unfortunately didn't make it to our watch list today. So this is the euro against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buys on Friday. Price was somewhere here. I did point out that the best buy would have been at least if we broke above this region to the upside, and maybe if we did get a hold, could have looked for buys there. But consider the market within this region, the sellers did react to the downside, no sign of any buyers within there. And you can see that during the US session, price came back in within this area, just shy of this area. Seems like this price was good enough, and you can see that the buyers did actually react off that area coming up. But of course, unfortunately, we couldn't get a proper hold, within here, and the buyers actually lifting to the upside. They really struggled. You can see today, some sort of CHF strength that's coming in. So unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're trying to also see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the 3 areas that I had mapped out in the morning. On Friday morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area. So at around 9:10, price was within here. There was no sign of any buyers within this minus and R here. Price came down, still no buyers within there, but can't see that price came back in all the way down to within this area. Something similar to what we've seen on the euro against the Swiss franc. And you can see that during the US session, the buyers did actually show up, but you definitely did need to manage your trade within there. You got your buys down within this region right here. So can't see that this one, only more or less like one buying opportunity. Of course, would have expected, the market to make higher highs and higher lows. But that's the reason why we always point out, you need to be very good in terms of your money management game, because, the markets can easily end up turning at any given point in time. But, it's your job as a trader to make sure that, you execute trades, but also make sure that you do end up finishing them quite well and exiting, and managing them the right way and the correct way. Otherwise, you won't be making any money. So you can see for this one, last but not least, the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have also gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out in the morning. When we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we're expecting price to come back in within here, maybe get some sort of a buyer coming in within here for us to look for the buys. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen. Price came back in all the way down to within this region. And you can see that this was the main area where the buyer had really pushed up the day before. This was on Thursday. And of course, off that region, during the US session, price was back within a region of support. And you can see that the market did push itself off this region, 430. If you got buys here, definitely did need to manage your trade within that region right there. But unfortunately for us, for today, not really a currency pair that we're going to be watching out for. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have for review. Of course, quite a number of good opportunities that were there, but like I pointed out, definitely did need to manage. Today, we're going to be seeing a lot of maybe strength coming in on the Japanese yen. So unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can get any more sells. And of course, also something to do with the bigger time frames, but we'll be having a look at that as we end up having a look at them. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. This is what we're going to be watching out for today. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side, the USDs, the euros, the cards. Then we'll end up finishing off with the indices and the commodities. So the first one off the line, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair that we did end up having on Friday, and we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 areas right there that I had pointed out. On Friday morning, at a time like this, price was somewhere within this region right here, and did point out caution in terms of looking for the buys. When price was here, did point out that you did need to give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You can see that during the London session, the market came down. So at around 10, price was high up there, and at around 3, 4:30, price was back in within here. So you just needed to be patient. And remember, guys, we always point out these times, and I know that we sound like a broken record, but it is what it is. So you need to watch out for where is price, at 9, which of course is the Frankfurt market open. There's 10, which is the London market open. There is 3, which is the US session open, and 4:30, which is the New York Stock Exchange open. If you do watch out for where price is within those times, even if your timing is not really that good, but for as long as we're within a region of resistance or support and you end up possibly trying out some trades within there, there's a higher probability of your trades working out. It's not a sure bet that you're definitely going to make it out alive, but at least it does increase the chances and the probabilities of your trades working out. So you can see for this one, 10 price was there. The sellers did react. It's not something uncommon. We've seen that on the charts many times, and you can see that at around 3, 4:30 price was back within a region of support, and the buyers did actually push the market to the upside. You definitely did need to manage your trade, somewhere within this particular region right here, and you can see that the market held there till the close of Friday. It's only today morning during the Asian session that the market attempted to break that region to the upside. But you can see that the sellers have pushed the market back in. So for this one, we'll be still trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. But these are the 3 areas that we will be watching out for. So let's see what happens. If maybe the market could come back in, maybe somewhere within here, maybe it could be looking for some prices within these regions. But let's see if we can get some sort of a slowdown within this area. If we do get that, then I'll definitely be looking to see whether I can get some buying opportunities within here. But you still will need to manage your trade within here, because you're not too sure whether this could possibly end up turning into some sort of a range. You could easily end up overlooking this region only for the market to actually end up reacting off here to come back in within this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, in case the market does end up turning off this area, unless you're really good at reading the charts, maybe getting this buy right here could be a bit tricky, but you could find that maybe if the market does end up coming back to the upside, of this area, you do end up looking for buys within here. Let's say the whole of this rollover phase, the buyers first coming in and the market holding within here. And you could find it that maybe during the London session, the market needs the London session or at least one session to do that. And you could find that maybe at 4:30 price could be somewhere within here. You could possibly look for your buying opportunity. So you could watch out for that. But also on the other hand, what could end up happening is you could find that the sellers could really come in, within this area, maybe start to slow down within this area. If we also end up getting that, then I'll definitely be looking to see whether I can get some buying opportunities, within this region right here. So you could find that maybe during the London session, the market could also set itself up, something like that. So we'll just have to wait and see what the market does. Remember that we're analyzing, to the best of our ability, but the market does end up having a mind of its own. So we'll have to end up waiting to see, what the big boys actually do end up doing. And whichever situation shows up, then at least we will be ready for it. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. So you can see for this one, the 3 areas that I had mapped out, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that it was better to wait and see if we could first get price either breaking above this region to the upside, or if we did pull back in within here, then we could have looked for some buying opportunities. And you can see that this one is almost similar to one of the CHFs that we looked at. And you can see that price came back into the downside. And of course, at 10, price was somewhere within this region right here. So not really a good area to look for the buying opportunities. But if you do end up looking at around 4:30, price was back in, within this region right here. This was some sort of a buyer's region. So just some patience that was needed to end up getting that trade. And you can see that the market did end up coming up during the US session on Friday. So for this one, it's not really gone far and beyond the areas that we're watching out for on Friday. So we'll still be watching out for the same regions that we were looking out for. So hopefully can end up taking note of that. Maybe we could get into some sort of a range within here, but definitely within a good region in terms of looking for the buys. But in as much as we're within a good region, let's wait and see if we can get some sort of a slowdown, of the sellers coming in and of course some buyers showing up. Because if the buyers do not end up showing up within here, even if we're within some sort of a buyer's region, those buys might not really end up working off there. You could find them working maybe a bit lower. Maybe the buyers do need a much better price than this. But of course, if we do get some sort of a probe within here and we get the market holding to the upside, and of course, watching out for the times, you could end up finding a really good buy within here. And of course, if that does end up being the case, I'll definitely be looking for buys there, but making sure to manage my trade at the top right there. There's no guarantee that price will actually end up reaching that region to the upside. So you definitely will need to end up managing your trade within there. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, we did also end up having it on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And if we do end up going back to the times, so at a time like this on Friday, so at around 9:10, you can see that price was within here. There was this region that I had pointed out. Could find the market reacting off there. Price did end up coming down, just came shy of this region right here. But at least you can see that at around 3, 4:30, which is more or less during the US session, price was at least back down, within this sort of region right here, which did seem like there was some sort of a buyer's area, just came shy of this area. But at least you can see that off this region, the buys did end up working out during the US session, coming in within there. You definitely did need to manage your trade within that particular region right there. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three areas right here. If you do end up looking at the Swiss franc pairs, I mean, looking at more or less the ones that we've looked at, even the ones that we do have for review, you can see that all of them are giving some sort of a pullback. Maybe could be some strength coming in on the Swiss franc. We'll see how far that will end up going. But like we always point out, watch out for correlation. So that, of course, if you do end up seeing maybe one of the CHFs standing and maybe the big boy starting to show up, maybe have a look at the rest of the CHFs. That could give you the confirmation to know whether the big boys are back in terms of possibly dumping the Swiss franc. And you could end up, grabbing a couple of CHF pairs, just by looking at correlation. So just make sure that you also do end up doing some proper research before you jump in on any trade. Remember, trading is like, you should be like some sort of a detective, when it comes to trading. So you should always find out and do your analysis properly, before you jump in on any trade, because, the big boys always try and really hide their cards. So it's up to you to really try and figure out what they're doing and where the big boys are. So if you see, let's say, one Swiss franc is moving and you can't see that happening on the others, try have a look at the other currency pair, that's matched up with the Swiss franc to find out if maybe the big boys are possibly moving on that. So let's say, like, for example, if it's CHF here, and maybe you're seeing something on the Swiss franc, maybe in terms of strength coming in on this one, but you can't see it on the rest of them, then that means that maybe it could be something to do with the yen. So you see, just doing that sort of analysis at least helps you know which currency pair you're going to be relying on in terms of getting the job done, in terms of pushing your trade to your take profit. So it's always good to have that in mind. So last but not least, for the Swiss franc pairs, we do have the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. You can see that this one has already started coming down. Definitely something to do with the yen pairs. I mean, when we're looking at the ones that we had for the post analysis that we don't have today, you saw that they were coming down. And even for the ones that we're going to be looking at, you will see that that's the case. So you can see that during the Asian session, it seems like the Asian big boys started pushing the yen pairs down quite aggressively. This is something that we saw about 2 weeks ago. And remember, we saw the markets really starting to move very early in the weekend. They really moved quite far. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this is going to be another week like that. But you can see that during the Asian session, the sellers have really come down quite aggressively. But like we always point out, wait for the pullback. So these are the three areas we will be waiting to see what happens. Right now, we're just attempting to breach this region to the downside. Don't really jump in on any sells now. If we end up going up a higher time frame, you will see that we're coming in within this region right here. So we're not too sure whether the market could break this region to the downside. If it does, and we do actually end up getting some sort of a pullback within here, then this could be a good area. Definitely be trying to see whether I could get some sales there, maybe to come down and challenge this region right here. But also, on the other hand, you could find the market bouncing off this area to the upside. Right now, it's just broken this region. So you could possibly find that maybe there could be a retest, coming back in within that area right there. So let us wait and see. We could get maybe the buyers pushing the market up, hopefully somewhere as close as possible within here during the London session. And you could find that maybe during the US session, we could resume with the sales. So I'll definitely be watching out for that. But also remember the red SNR at the top, in case the market does actually end up breaking and holding above this region to the upside. Then, unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us on the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So that's pretty much it for the Swiss franc pairs. So right now, we're going to move on to the USD pairs, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we're going to start off with the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So this one is a new one on our watch list. So these are the three areas that we will be trying to see whether we can get some trades and also regions where we can end up managing our trades. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. Right now, we've tapped some region where we do have resistance. You can see that the sellers are reacting, which is okay. We have a minor tenor here. But of course, trying to get the buys here, you could really end up getting into some sort of a squeeze. So let's see if we can possibly get the market. Hopefully, if it does end up coming in somewhere as close as possible within here, then I'll be looking for the buys somewhere within there to possibly end up coming back up to challenge this region right here. But also remember that you could find the market breaking above this region to the upside. If it does do that, then hopefully we do get a nice hold. After a nice strong breach, not the type of breaches where the market just breaks and just sits. This is an art. Sometimes those ones, and most of the time, they do actually end up being traps. They're not really my favorite. So hopefully we get a nice strong breach to the upside and the market pulls back in nice and easy within this region, then I'll definitely be looking for the buys there. So let's see what happens on this one. Also remember the red SNR at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but when it comes to the markets, anything is possible. You could easily find the market back in within there, maybe during the US session. So we'll just need to wait and see what the big boys do end up doing. Whichever price they do actually end up being interested in, then that's the price that we are also going to be interested in. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we'll be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there that we've mapped out. And right now the market is just attempting to break above this region to the upside. In as much as it's broken, it seems like it's broken to the upside. We do need a bit more confirmation, because you could easily find that the market could come back into the downside. So if it does come back in and hold below this region, you could find that the market could be coming back in, maybe all the way down to within here, or maybe even within this SNR right here, before the buyers do actually end up attempting to push to the upside. So we'll have to wait and see what happens within here. The only time maybe I will end up attempting a buy is if the market does end up coming to the downside and the buyers show up quite aggressively and the market now comes back in and holds within here. Then at that point in time, at least that would be much better in terms of looking for the buys. But right now, we'll still have to wait and see what happens. We need to wait for the aftermath. After the market has actually broken this region to the upside, to wait and see if we can actually get a hold either to the upside or to the downside, and what the sellers within this region have to say. But also do watch out for these two regions right here. You could find that the market could also pull back in within those areas right there. But also remembering the red SNR, in case the market breaks beneath that region and holds below that region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. We will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas right there. Right now we've tapped some sort of resistance region right there. You can see that the buyers have really come up during the Asian session quite aggressively, tapped within that area. These are resistance area even on the bigger time frame. So right now the sellers are reacting. It's not uncommon. Let's see if the market can come back in somewhere within this region right here, or somewhere as close as possible within there. Definitely do have my eyes locked on that region. If we do end up getting a sign of the big boy buyers showing up within here, I'll definitely be looking for the buys they are managing somewhere within that region. Also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. In case the big boys do need that price, then we should also be ready for that. But also remember that the market could easily also end up turning off this area. I mean, based on how the buyers have really come up, we'll just have to wait and see how the sellers do end up retaliating off this region right here. Right now, it seems like they're just holding the buyers within that area, and some sort of a fight is now starting to happen. But let's see what happens. If they can't actually end up getting all the way down to within here, there's a minor scenario here. Although best advice, I mean, if you're going to be looking for the buys here, unless you're going to look at them on the smaller time frame. But in terms of risk to reward, it could be a bit tricky because, the SNR at the top could really end up giving you issues, and you could end up getting held within here, getting taken for some sort of an emotional and psychological roller coaster, which is not really something that you want to sign up for. So it might be better to wait for the market to break above this region to the upside. If it does break and we get a nice strong breach to the upside and a nice pullback, that comes back in within this region, nice and easy, then at that point in time, definitely could look for some buying opportunities. So let's wait and see what happens on this one. But also, like I pointed out, make sure that you watch out for correlation. I mean, if you see the pullback happening on one, especially the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar, they do end up having some good correlation that works across both of them. and you could find some good trading opportunities on both of them against the US dollar. So last but not least, for the USDs, we have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So you can see that the market really struggled to come up. There was this minus SNR here held within there. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the market coming in within this region. But of course, we didn't really want to get our buys so close within there. The market came back in within this region right here. We couldn't get the market, bouncing off this area. It seems like price had just come back in to look for this region. Unfortunately, we got the buyers coming in, but they just couldn't hold, above this region to the upside for us to look for the buys. And you can see that the market did continue coming down. And today, during the Asian session, it seems like that's when all hell did actually end up breaking loose. So for this one, for today, not really any clear buying opportunities on Friday. Today, we're going to be going the other way. Let's see if we can get some selling opportunities today. Right now, the market has come down. Don't chase. Definitely, since a lot of people and millions of traders, across the world are definitely seeing red bars on their charts. And guys are definitely chasing sales. Don't be part of those guys. Let them chase. You could find that the market could easily bounce off this region to the upside. There's some sort of an SNR within this area right here. So if we were to go up to the 4-hour time frame, you can see that we've just come back in within this region. In terms of looking for some smart entries, the best entry could be somewhere within here. I mean, if the market has broken this region to the downside, there's a high probability the market could come back in within this area for some sort of a retest. If that happens, then at least definitely be ready for that sell within there, managing within here, even if we could possibly be coming down. Maybe the strength on the yen pairs could be back. Remember, like from before, price was really coming down. I think for nearly a whole month, price was just coming down. There was some sort of a pullback that did happen, some weakness that was showing, but I don't think it was really weakness. It was more or less maybe the market looking for, fresh pair of legs, so that it can possibly end up running down further. And it seems that the market just came back in within here. So pulled back in for like 2 weeks or so. And right now, maybe the strength, based on the intervention that we're seeing that the Japanese government was actually putting in place, maybe it could be back because it's something that's visible across the board. I mean, looking at the rest of the yen. So you could find that maybe if you do get some good selling opportunities on the yens, just make sure that you manage, but also try and see how much more further you could hang on, because you could find that maybe based on these moves that are now happening, and there's no doubt whatsoever that these are the big boys who are back, the same big boys who are pushing the market down lower. Could find that if you get some nice pullbacks, maybe the market could actually be coming down, to challenge this region right here, or possibly even end up going lower. So it's definitely something that's visible on the bigger time frames. So you could also try and, hang on and maybe swing with it and see how far you could actually end up going down with it. So that's pretty much it for the USD pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the Euro pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Euro against the Australian dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So make sure that you do end up taking note of these three regions right here. So right now you can see that the market did come down. This was during the Asian session. The market came down, bounced off this region right here twice, gave some sort of a double bottom there. The buyers have come up. Prices come back in within some sort of a seller's region, which is good. Let's see if we can get this buyers slowing down. You can see that they pushed the upside. This is the first retaliation of the sellers within this region. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, they do end up slowing down within this region right here on their next attempt. Because remember, you want to get yourselves, as close as possible within there, so that at least even the risk to reward coming down does actually end up making way more sense. So you could find that maybe they might even attempt going to the upside, looking at how aggressively they've come in within there. But at least if the sellers do actually end up shutting them down and the market does end up slowing down within that area and we get something like that, at that point in time, you could possibly end up trying to see whether you could get some sales within here. You could find that maybe for the market to play out like this, it might maybe even need the London session before, the buyers really slow down. Maybe even for the buyers to possibly end up coming out of their orders, or the big boys to come out of their buy orders, for them to possibly end up now switching to the sell, that you find that the sell comes down. So let's see what happens within this region right here. Doesn't mean that it can't move during the London session and you could find the market coming down. But you also could find that maybe for the buyers to really slow down, maybe you'll find that maybe that might be what might be needed, maybe to even break this region to the downside, and you could manage your trade within there and actually go lower with it. So just make sure that you watch out for that. We're not within a bad area. Let's just wait and see maybe what happens at 10 or thereabout, but also watch out for the region at the top, the red SNR. Also could find that price could easily come back in within that region. In case the big boys need that price, then at least we should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some sells as well. Hopefully you can end up taking note of that. This one looks like the market has started getting to some sort of a range, within this region right here, almost something similar to the euro against the Australian dollar. But this one is not yet at the top like the other one. But let's see if we can possibly get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. It's a good sign to see that the buyers are really struggling to come up, which is good. But of course, in terms of where and the location where the market is, this is not really the best in terms of looking for the selling opportunities. I mean, even if you do get the sell there, the risk to reward coming down might not really end up being really worth it. We're only looking at 8 pips or 9 pips, coming down. So hopefully the higher we can get it rather, the better for us in terms of the sales. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's see if we can get the market coming in somewhere as close as possible within there. If we do get a sign of the sellers coming in, then at least definitely be looking for the sells there. If not, then we'll just have to wait and see whether we can get the price, coming in a bit higher. And at least if that happens, then we should be ready for that as well. So the next euro pair, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we will be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities and also areas where we can manage our trades within those 3 areas right there. This one is pulling back in within here. At least it's not pulling back in as aggressively as the euro against the Australian dollar. So let's see what happens within here when it taps within here. Hopefully these sellers can end up reacting. And if they do, at least if we do get some sells from there coming down, consider this one is not bad. About 53 pips or 54 pips, which is not too bad. So of course, if we do end up getting a nice tight stop loss within there, of course, based on the story of what happens within here, then at least coming down, this could possibly give some very, very good risk to reward. So watch out for that. But also remember the region at the top. In case, let's say we don't get a reaction off here, and we can't get the sellers showing up within that region, then you could find that maybe the price could come back in all the way till within here. But remember that this is the last area where we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some sales. It's not a guarantee that, if price doesn't end up reacting off here, that it's going to come back in within there. Because you can see that there are also some regions within here that where we do have sellers. But this is more or less like the last area. So in case the market comes in within here and actually breaks to the upside of this region, at that point in time, we're not going to be fighting with the markets anymore in terms of looking for the sales. So it's the point where we know that enough is enough, because you could easily end up keep fighting with the market and the market keeps going against you. So in as much as you do have a stop loss, it's also good to know at what point do you actually give up the fight. So moving on into the last euro pair, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions that I have pointed out, and also an illustration of maybe what to expect. But I did point out that this was not a good area for looking for, for your buying opportunities. You didn't need to give the sellers the benefit of doubt, and you definitely can see that they did react quite aggressively. And as much as the buyers had stepped up within that region quite aggressively, and the sellers really slowed down. But like we always point out, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. They may not look like they're very active within there, but it doesn't mean that they can't react. And you can't see that they reacted, pushed the market to the downside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anything right here to tell us to look for the buys. The market came shy of this area. The buyers seemed like they started to react, but the price just couldn't hold above this region properly, for us to look for the buying opportunities. So unfortunately for this one, there was no clear buying opportunity on Friday. So today we're going to be going the other way. So let's see whether we can get the market coming back in within these areas right here. The market is breaching to the downside of this region right here. But we definitely need to see a bit more of the story, before we actually jump in. This one is similar to the rest of the yens. Like we always point out, there's always some very good correlation that happens across the board on the yen pairs. You can see that the market reacted off here coming to the downside. This was during on the 1st of August. The price came down. The market has been pulling back in for the last 2 weeks, giving some sort of a pullback. Right now, it seems like the market is back in within here. Now, the sellers definitely seem like they're back. You could find that maybe the price could come back in all the way to challenge, these regions right here, especially considering the fact that it's come back in, even gotten a higher price than this, tapped within those regions. The sellers seem to be back. Let's see if we could possibly end up getting some sales coming in off this area right here. And of course, as the market continues to come down, I mean, if, the yens do actually end up showing the strength is back for an extended period of time, you could find that the market could be coming down, which means that, as we're getting selling opportunities and we're coming down lower and lower, the better for us. By the time price comes back in within here, then I think we should have made some good money. So for this one, the sellers are back. Price is breaching this region to the downside. Don't look for your selling opportunities right now. If you look at the 4-hour, you can definitely see we're back in within some sort of a buyer's region. So all the guys who are going to be hitting selling opportunities within that area, I really pity them. So just make sure that you really wait. Maybe you could find that the market could actually either break this region to the downside. Then if that happens, then you could find on the pullback, you could find some sales happening within there. If not, give these bars the benefit of doubt. And you can see that it's visible on the bigger time frame. There's possibly a pullback that could come back in, within that region right there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Remembering the red SNR, if the market does pull back in and break above that region and hold above it to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So that's pretty much it for the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the Canadian dollar pairs. We're going to do exactly the same as the rest. We're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy. So we'll start off with this one. This is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for those 3 areas right there. Don't look for the buying opportunities right now. Wait and see if you could get the market breaking above that region to the upside. If it does end up breaking, of course, the bars are now showing up in terms of aggression. You can see that the market is just pushing off this region quite aggressively, which is good. But the fact that we're still within our sellers region, don't look for the buys just yet. If they can sustain this momentum that they're starting off with and the market actually breaks to the upside, then hopefully we do get the market breaking to the upside and the market comes back in within that region, then we could possibly end up looking for the buys somewhere within here. But right now, give the sellers the benefit of doubt. And as much as the buyers are showing up, you still can't find that they can retaliate and push the market down. If it does end up coming back in within there or somewhere within here, then at that point in time, definitely be trying to see whether I can get the slowdown, of the sellers coming in to possibly try and hit those buys within that area. So do watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buys. So hopefully you can end up taking note of these 3 areas right here. So right now the market is coming back in within this region. Don't look for buys, especially when the price is high up within there. At least it's better to wait and see if you could get the market breaking above that region to the upside. If it does end up at least taking out these sellers, can't see that they've reacted before. So you're not too sure what type of reaction you could get when the market comes back in within here. All we know is that the previous time when price was here, this is how the sellers reacted. What they're going to do now, we don't know. All we know is that they can react again because they've done it before. You can see that the market came in quite aggressively within this region on Friday, and yet the sellers did retaliate. So you don't really want to end up getting yourself in some sort of a situation within that region there. So let's wait and see. Hopefully they can react and push the market maybe somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. Then this is a good area to look for your buying opportunities. Or if they don't end up reacting and get the market breaking above this region to the upside, then at that point in time, we could end up looking for buying opportunities. But right now, it's better to actually wait. So also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but like we always point out, when it comes to the Forex market, anything is possible. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. So moving on into the next one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buys as well. So do watch out for those 3 regions right there. This one is not too bad, considering the fact that we're coming back in within this region. Of course, there's still this sort of SNR somewhere within here that the market has turned off, but the major SNR is a bit higher because if you do end up going up, to a higher time frame, you will see that in as much as the sellers did come in and the market has come back in, there's a possibility price could be coming back in for that price, especially for the guys who've done the AMP to some extent, especially the guys who've done the one-on-one. You will definitely see why that area is quite significant to us. But generally, you also can see that the sellers have reacted off there before. So the major scenario is somewhere here. The one that we're looking at on the 15, where the market did turn off, this is more or less like a minor scenario. It doesn't mean that it can't come into play and give you issues on your way up. It can, because I mean, the market has been coming up. This was during the Asian session. Prices turned off that region there. Still can't turn off, but hopefully we get the buyers really lifting off this region to the upside. I don't really think this one should really pose much of a challenge. So we'll be watching out to see what happens within this region here. Let's see, but at least if these sellers can push the market just slightly lower, if you can get the market coming back in, within here, maybe an attempt to break to the downside. If we do end up getting the market doing something like that, and after the attempt, maybe 3, you find the market somewhere within here, we should possibly end up lifting off that region to the upside, taking out this region, and hopefully come back in within this area right here. And this trade right here will be quite decent. In as much as it's 20 pips, of course, if you get a stop loss of maybe anywhere within 10 pips or thereabout, still could get a 1:2, but you definitely will need to manage your trade within here. But also watch out for the region at the bottom. Of course, if the market comes in lower within this region, even the better for us, because that will give us more risk to reward to the upside. We'll definitely end up having way more room, to end up playing with to the upside. So you definitely can end up watching out for that. So last but not least, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday, but on Friday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that I did point out. Friday morning, price was somewhere within here. I did point out, don't look for your buys there. Price came down. There was no reaction of the sellers, of the buyers within that region. Price even came back a bit lower, just came shy of this here. And then after that, you can see that's when the buyers did actually end up showing up, just coming back in within this region. But this one could have been a bit tricky to end up grabbing. And you can see that today during the Asian session, the sellers have really pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively. So for this one, for today, just like the rest of the yens that we've looked at, we'll be trying to see whether we can end up buying the yen. So that means that for this one, we'll be looking for sells. So right now, the market has come down. Don't really end up looking for the sells now. Like I pointed out, even like on the rest of the yens, a lot of traders across the world, are definitely seeing, the red bars coming down. Remember that you're not the only one who's seeing these charts. There are so many people who are seeing that. Definitely a lot of people are jumping in on that. You can see those massive red bars coming down, but are just coming back in within some sort of a buyer's region. Maybe you could find that the market could react off this area right here. Maybe you could find some sort of a pullback coming in within this region. If that does end up happening, then the best sells could be somewhere here. And the market comes back in for some sort of a retest. Could find some sells happening off there. But also watch out for this region at the top. There's a possibility you could find that the market could come back in all the way till within there. Slim possibility, slight possibility, but still, it's always good to keep your options open. If the market does break above this region to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. But generally, you can see that within this area, the buyers have reacted. So all the guys who are hitting, selling opportunities within that area, you're completely off location. So make sure that you don't end up getting caught in that. But at least if the market does break beneath this region to the downside on the pullback, if we do get some sort of a retest coming back in within here, then at least if you do get that sell, that one might be a bit safer and you could even end up targeting all the way down there or even much lower. Like I was pointing out on the yen pairs. If the strength on the yens are back, remember that they were coming down for an extended period of time, some sort of a pullback that's definitely shifted the mindset of so many traders. So if now guys are jumping in the opposite direction, which is good, and they're still chasing those buys, that will mean that the markets could definitely end up maybe coming down all the way to within here, maybe even breaking this region to the downside. So we'll just have to wait and see. But in as much as, of course, that's on the bigger scale of things, your job as a trader is to just make sure that you enter those trades and you manage them to the best of your ability. So do watch out for those 3 areas. Let's see what happens within here. I'll definitely set an alert there to see what happens. And of course, make sure before you jump in on any yen pair or any trade whatsoever, just make sure that you do look at the correlation just to make sure that, it's something that's happening across the board. That will definitely give you the confidence that you need to jump in on your trades. And at least, if you do jump in on your trade, you can actually leave your trade. Because, it's one thing to actually take a trade and you sit there and you babysit your trade. That's not the way trading is supposed to happen. So if you can get the reassurance and the confidence that your trade will work out before you take it, then that will give you that much more confidence and ease of mind to actually leave your trades, because you know that you're working in line with the big boys. So correlation is very key. Make sure you have a look at that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So for the guys who came in late, feel free to take a screenshot of that. This is what the plan is going to be looking like. And by the way, when it comes to the fundamental front for today, there's not really much that's going to be happening, but that doesn't mean that the charts are not going to be moving. I mean, you've already seen that during the Asian session, the charts have already moved, but there's not really much that's going to be happening on the fundamental front today. So we don't really expect much changes or any changes in terms of our watch list for today. So I guess we can end up looking at the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. On Friday morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And I did point out that you could find that the market, if it does end up breaking to the downside of this region and hold below, there's a possibility price was going to come back in within here. That's exactly what it did. Just needed to be patient. So at 10, price was within a seller's region. At 4:30, price was within some sort of a buyer's region. And you can see that off this area right here, the market did push itself to the upside. So this is also another good example of why patience is key, when it comes to trading. Just be patient. Patience pays, especially when it comes to trading. Unfortunately, when you end up rushing into trades and you're not patient, then I'm sure that most of you definitely know that that doesn't end up working out too well. So for this one, for today, those are the three areas. Hopefully you can end up taking note of them. More or less the same story. Price has moved, but it's not really moved far and beyond the areas that we did have. You can see that the market attempted to break this region to the upside. And I don't really like this type of breaches. Remember when I talked about strong breaches, we always need to see strong breaches. When you see the market just breaking and sitting on a level, it's never really a good sign, because many people and breakout traders start to hit buys here thinking that the market is holding. And you can see that this one comes back into the downside. Had the market maybe broken and moved away, then maybe come back in within here, you could find that that could give some good buys. So this is a good example, of what we're talking about. This type of breaches can definitely end up costing you money. They've definitely costed me money. So that's the reason why we advise guys, based on the experiences that us guys have had on the charts. So for this one, let's see if we could get the market either coming back in within here, or maybe somewhere within this region right here. But you also could find that, if the sellers are unable to come down all the way to within this region, there's still a scenario here. What you could find is that if the market does end up shooting to the upside quite aggressively, more aggressively than the previous time, and the market comes back in within here in a choppy manner, then at least at that point in time, you could look for the buying opportunities, somehow within that area right there. But this type of breaches, if we get something similar to this, you're better off maybe holding off. So wait and see what happens. And of course, watch out for the red SNR. Like we always point out, we're fully technical on the indices. So as long as we're holding above the red SNR to the upside, then we should be looking for buys. If the market breaks and holds beneath the red SNR, then at that point in time, we can actually end up shifting our biases. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys on Friday. Similar situation to today. You can see on Friday, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we did need to see the market break and hold above here for us to look for the buys, but also watch out for this region right here. And you can see that this one is similar. So during the London market open, price was within some sort of a seller's region. The sellers did react. It's not something that's surprising. And you can see that price did come back in within a buyer's region. And this was during the US session, from around 4:30 rather. And you can see that at around 4:30, price did push to the upside. So you also just needed to be patient on that one. So for this one, the levels are the same as well. Almost something similar to the NAS 100. Price just broke and sat on this level right here. Right now, the market is coming back in. Let's see, unless the market maybe pushes back to the upside quite aggressively and holds above here, maybe at that point in time, you could actually end up attempting some buying opportunities. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll definitely be waiting to see whether I could get the prices coming back in within these two regions right here. So hopefully, guys, I'll take a note of that. Of course, if you do end up getting some sales, you still can end up taking them, but just be aware that the sales that you're taking are counters, and they can easily end up failing on you at any given point in time because they're still in buyers. You know, the buyers can still show up at any given point in time without any warning. So moving on into the next one, this is silver. Now for silver, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys on Friday, similar situation to today. So these are the three areas I had pointed out. There was also this SNR that I had pointed out that you could find that the market could come in within there and give you issues. And you can see that the market came down back in within this region. And you can see that the sellers had pushed down off this area right here that I had ended up putting there. And you can see that this one did actually end up taking off to the upside during the US session. So for this one, you can see that you also just needed to be patient. I mean, if you did end up taking the trades during the London session, then you can see that there was a bit of a roller coaster that was going on within here, but it was only during the US session that the market took off to the upside, came in within there. Definitely did need to manage your trade within that region, and you can see that the market did continue pushing up to the upside. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of these three regions right here. So right now, don't look for the buys. The sellers have reacted off here before. They can't do that again. It's only maybe if we do get the market breaking to the upside of this region and a nice pullback comes in, then at that point in time, we could look for some buys. But right now, give the sellers the benefit of doubt. You still could find that maybe during the London session, the market could easily end up pulling back into the downside, and it still could come back in, within this area. And you could find that maybe at around 3, price could be back in within here. Or if the market breaks to the upside, let it break. It's okay. You don't actually have to be in on this trade. I know that sometimes and most of the time, people do actually end up getting a lot of FOMO, especially when you see the market going up and you knew it was going to go up. You don't need to be on every trade. You know that the charts do actually end up showing you. Sometimes it's good to wait. So if the market breaks to the upside, I mean, you still definitely could find the pullback coming in, during the US session, and you could find that the market could be back in, within this region right here, at around 3. So for me as a trader, I'm just waiting for whichever scenario ends up happening. If the market is down within here at 3, well and good. If it breaks to the upside, goes up and comes back down, and at 3, it's back in within here, well and good. It's still perfectly fine. So we just need to wait and see what the markets do actually end up telling us. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. So on Friday morning, price was somewhere within here. And I did point out that we did either need to see the market either come down, just giving this region the benefit of doubt, come down back in within here, and we could look for the buys to go to the upside, or maybe if the market broke to the upside of this region and a hold, then we could look for the buys. Although this one was a bit technical because you did need to read this on a smaller time frame, but at least off that you can see that the market went to the upside, broke above this region, then you can see that the market pulled back in. This was at around the New York Stock Exchange open. You can see that off this area the market did continue pushing itself to the upside. So for this one, for today, for as long as we're still holding above the red SNR, the bus is still going to be to look for buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those 3 areas right there. In terms of looking for the buys now, might not really be the best of ideas. If you do, there's a high probability utaanguka nayo, because this one, you can see that we're within some sort of a seller's region within there. If you hit the buys there, the sellers could still react. They could push the market back in within here. So just wait and see what happens. If the market breaks above here to the upside, or of course, it's not a bad sign considering the fact that the sellers are just holding within here. It means that there's a real struggle that's going on within here. But, you should be wiser as a trader. You should know that, you should not be selling where there are buyers or buying where there are sellers. So it's better to wait and see if you could get the market maybe breaking above this region to the upside. If it does end up breaking to the upside, if it pulls back in within here, you still could find a good buying opportunity there. But also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You don't know what they could do. Maybe during the London session, you could find that the market could come down to within this region or somewhere here. You could find that maybe at 3, price could be somewhere within this region or somewhere here. You still could find some good buying opportunities. So we just need to be patient to see what happens. But the bias is to look for those buying opportunities. So I guess that's pretty much it for everything. So I guess we can end up looking at some questions on the Q&A. So I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you, Alan. As always, you're saying hello. I sent a screenshot. I needed some advice on it. Kindly assist. We'll end up looking at it tomorrow. We'll definitely end up looking at it. So thanks for that. But we'll give you the advice tomorrow. Unfortunately, Monday we don't really end up looking much. Looking into screenshots, but tomorrow we'll definitely give you advice on it. So you're also asking, how do we know that we are on a buyer's or seller's side? Well, it's something we call zone. So it's basically based on the buyer who's pushing up the market or the seller who's pushing up the market. So you see, like for right now on gold, the buyers who are pushing up, technically we could say that somewhere within this region right here, and they're the ones who are pushing up the market, but of course, if we now end up being a bit more technical, looking at the structure of the market and whatnot, technically you could say that the buyers who are pushing up and who are responsible for this move pushing to the upside are definitely sitting somewhere within here. So all we know is that for as long as price is holding above this region to the upside, the buyers are still in control. It's only once the market comes and breaks, beneath somewhere within this region to the downside, that's when now we can actually end up switching sides. So it doesn't mean that right now we can't look for the sells. We can. The only thing that you just need to be aware of is that the selling opportunities that you're looking for are actually counters based on the overall flow of the market. So it's just a matter of looking at, who's responsible in terms of, breaching the market, either to the upside or to the downside. But it's a concept that we also end up getting deeper into, especially in the masterclass, polishing it up in the AMP, the Amplified program, and definitely even now, even taking things to another level when it goes to the one-on-one. So, but basically it's, the buyers or the sellers who are responsible for pushing the market down. So you see, like even for example here, when the market was coming down, the sellers who are responsible for this push to the downside, even reaching this level to the downside, were these sellers who are sitting somewhere within here. So we knew that for as long as we were holding within this region right here, we're in a seller's zone. So it's only when the market actually came up and broke and took out this seller to the upside, and you can see that there was a real fight that took on within here. That's when the market did actually now end up switching to the upside quite confidently, or we could actually end up starting to look for the buying opportunities then. But remember that every time frame has its own story. So this is on the 1 hour time frame. If you end up going down to the 15, you'll end up finding that in as much as we're holding beneath this region and the buyers was to look for sells, if you were to go down to the 15, you'll find that within this region right here, or somewhere within this bottom region right here, the market did actually end up switching quite fast. So that's also something that you can also end up watching out for, because remember that every time frame has its own story. Just make sure that you don't really end up mixing things up, because if you do, then that means that your analysis will end up being very messy. And if your analysis is messy, so will your trading, and so will your trades end up being messy. So I see you're also asking about Euro Yen. We'll end up looking at that in a bit. I don't know if you wanted a recap on that, or you're saying that you're in on a trade. I don't know if you have Euro Yen. Oh yeah, we do. So for this one, I think you're asking that repeat Euro Yen since I placed a sell. It depends. Where did you actually end up placing the sell? I hope you got your sell earlier, when the price was high up within there. If you're looking for the sells now, I would possibly advise either you end up scratching that trade, maybe wait for the price to come back in within here. But hopefully, if you got the sells somewhere within here or earlier, then you definitely can end up managing your trade right now. But in terms of looking for the sells now, I wouldn't really end up advising. Maybe it's better to just go with what we ended up showing here. So wait for the pullback, either back in within there, or maybe somewhere within that region. But if you got the sells down there, those ones could be a bit tricky. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. Oops. 1 second. All right. So just make sure that you do end up taking that advice. But you can let us know maybe what price you ended up getting the trade. That can definitely give you much better advice. So I see Charlene, good to see you there, saying gold is at an all-time high in its history. What is going on with this, and when can we short it? Yeah, that's true. Gold is actually at an all-time high. In fact, even if you end up looking at the whole chart, like from back in the day, you can see this chart is from back 1833. Price has been coming up, and you can see that right now we've never really been here before. So this is the first time. Interesting times we're living in. But in terms of looking for the sells, when can we short it? I think it's only when the buyers do actually end up showing up in terms of weakness, and they start showing that they're not really going to be making any higher highs. They really start to struggle. That's one side. Then maybe when we end up seeing that the sellers are also now starting to come in quite aggressively, that's the only time we'll possibly end up now starting to look and start going down with it. But in terms of now starting to look for the sells, sometimes people think that because the market is an all-time high, we can start looking for the sells. It can actually end up working against you. So don't really end up looking for the sells now. Considering the fact that we're at an all-time high and the market is still going to the upside, don't really try and short the market. I think we're not yet there just yet. Maybe we do end up seeing a slowdown of the buyers and the big sellers now starting to show up. At that point in time, maybe we could look for, to possibly try and go short. Right now, you could go short, but you could easily end up getting stopped out. And also remember, the fact that we're at an all-time high, we don't even have good reference points that we can use in terms of, resistance areas for us to look for the sells, because the market is now starting to form those levels as we're going up higher and higher. So in terms of the sells, I think we'll possibly just have to end up waiting. I can't say until when, but I think it's up until when the sellers do start to show up and the buyers do actually end up slowing down. So for that one, I think we'll just have to wait. So I see Evans Munene there. Good to see you, Evans. You're asking about GBPN. I don't think we had GBPN on our watch list for today. It's not really something that we're watching out for, based on considering that the fundamentals and some things are telling us that they should be on the same side. But technically speaking, the yens do seem to be quite strong. So maybe you could look for some sells, just using the technical aspect of things. But for us, unfortunately, not really something that we're watching out for. We're going to be looking for opportunities elsewhere. So I hope that answers your question, Evans. So I see Caroline Chege there asking any plans for special sessions for the masterclass and one-on-ones. Yes, they are. In fact, it's something we were discussing last week with the team. Let's see what happens. I know we were to have an exclusive masterclass webinar a couple of weeks back, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get the plans in place properly. But hopefully, let's see. Hopefully this week or sometime next week. Definitely we can. And also for the one-on-ones, definitely also something that's coming up. So it's not something that we've forgotten. Just that time is also moving quite fast. There are a lot of things to be done. So you find that some things actually end up getting overshadowed, but it's definitely something in the works. So I see Robert Muriuki there saying, Asante Sana, John, Baraka Teller, blessings to you too as well, Robert. And I see Caroline Chege there, you're asking NAS 100, you missed the levels. So for this one, same levels as Friday, same game plan. So hopefully you can end up taking note of this one as well. So I hope that sorts you out, Caroline. And of course, if you do miss out on anything we discuss here, and of course, this goes out to everyone else, feel free to, you can rewatch this broadcast on YouTube. You can even watch it faster. If you just want to peruse through quite fast, you can increase the speed and you can actually end up getting the information quite fast as well if you missed out on anything. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is okay. So let's see what the charts do have to offer today. Once again, this is the watch list. Remember, if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. Contact details, I'm sure that they're on our chat box. So if you do get any trades, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. We will be having a look at them tomorrow as we give you advice on what you can end up doing, but also to celebrate your wins as well. Also, remember the AMP class is open. The registrations are open for September as well. So feel free to sign up for that as well. The masterclass is also available. And of course, all the other resources that we do have, the UBC, the masterclass, you can find all that information, www.afriforex.com. If you go to the academy section, you can find that information. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. And with that, happy trading, guys. And bye for now. May the peeps be with you. God bless.